Rebecca read the family group chat at dawn, and the message hit like a blade she had seen coming for years. They said they were taking her Lakehouse for the summer, claiming it as casually as borrowing a sweater they never returned. She stared at the screen, feeling the old familiar ache, the one shaped by every favor, every debt, every unspoken expectation. Outside, the city was waking up, but inside her chest, something long buried shifted with a quiet, deliberate crack. No questions. No permission. Just entitlement wrapped in the thin disguise of family warmth she no longer believed in. And for the first time in her life, she didn't swallow it, didn't excuse it, didn't force herself to be the reasonable one. Claire's message stayed on Rebecca's phone like a stain refusing to fade, bright and smug in the morning light. She read it again, slower this time, letting the full weight of the intrusion sink into her bones. They were taking her Lakehouse, the home she built alone, and they wrote it like an errand already checked off. No request, no courtesy, not even the pretense of respect they used to perform when they wanted money. Rebecca felt something sharp inside her settle into place, a clarity she had ignored for too long. She walked to the kitchen, each step steady, each breath controlled, as if her body had decided before her mind did. The coffee machine hummed, filling the silence that grew heavier with every second she left the message unanswered. Her phone vibrated again, a cascade of cheerful emojis from Claire, as if entitlement needed decoration. Rebecca placed the phone face down on the counter, like sealing a door she no longer intended to open. Her Lakehouse had always been her sanctuary, carved out of years of exhaustion and invisible bruises. It was the only place where her family couldn't rewrite her effort, couldn't drain her energy, couldn't overwrite her boundaries. But they thought a text was enough to claim it, the same way they claimed her time, her patience, her wallet. She opened her laptop, typed in the security login she memorized like a prayer, and felt the cameras flicker alive. The screen filled with the familiar quiet of her Vermont porch, untouched, peaceful, entirely hers. She exhaled slowly, feeling a strange pulse of ownership she had never allowed herself to embrace before. Her fingers hovered over the control panel, the one she installed last winter after another unwanted, surprise visit. She changed the codes first, replacing every digit her mother had memorized from the old keypad. Then she updated the access list, deleting every family member with one deliberate click after another. Each removal felt like lifting a weight she had carried since she was old enough to pay a bill. She thought of the years spent covering overdraft fees that weren't hers, loans she never took, promises she never made. They were debts disguised as love, obligations wrapped in guilt, and she had paid all of them with interest. But this house was hers alone, a truth no one could twist, and today she finally let that truth take root. The phone vibrated again, this time with her mother's name lighting up the screen in soft pastel colors. Rebecca didn't look at it, didn't reach for it, didn't feel the old panic rise in her throat. Instead, she sipped her coffee, calm and cold, while the cameras showed her empty porch glowing under the early sun. She knew they would drive up soon, expecting access, expecting obedience, expecting her to fold like always. But the locks were changed, the codes replaced, the era of her silence officially over. For once, the house would greet them with the truth she had never spoken out loud. They believed they owned her summer, her space, her peace. They were about to learn they owned nothing at all. Rebecca sat on the couch with her coffee cooling beside her, and a familiar ache rose like a tide she no longer feared. Memories unfolded in sharp, clipped flashes, as if her mind finally decided to show the truth without filters. She remembered the first time Claire asked for money, laughing it off as a tiny boost she'd pay back in a week. The week became a month, then a year, then a quiet expectation that Rebecca would simply absorb the cost. Her father followed with his debts, calling her during lunch breaks, voice trembling just enough to trigger her guilt. She always paid, telling herself it was temporary, that families helped one another when times were hard. But the requests never stopped, and the debts multiplied like weeds in soil she hadn't agreed to water. Her mother was worse, cloaking every favor in a layer of emotional fog that blurred the line between love and duty. There were birthday gifts she couldn't afford, holidays she financed entirely, and emergencies that never truly ended. Every year, someone needed something, and every year Rebecca rearranged her life to cover the fallout. She told herself she was being responsible, being supportive, being the stable one in a family built on instability. But beneath that lie was a deeper truth she avoided. They relied on her because she never said no. They counted on her exhaustion, her quietness, her need to keep peace no matter what it cost. She remembered one winter when her mother called, frantic, saying she had locked herself out of the Lakehouse. Rebecca drove 3 hours in freezing rain, only to discover her mother wasn't locked out at all. She had simply decided to use the place for the weekend and wanted help fixing the fireplace. Rebecca didn't complain, didn't question, didn't claim the boundary that was rightfully hers. She handed over the spare key that night, smiling as if she hadn't just surrendered something essential. That key became a passport the whole family used, slipping in and out of her property without warning. She never knew when she'd find their groceries in her fridge or their towels dripping on her floors. She tried subtle hints first, asking them to text before visiting, asking for notice, asking for basic respect. But every request was twisted into accusations that she was selfish, distant, or ungrateful for family closeness. They spoke of unity, while treating her space like a public utility she was obligated to maintain. Rebecca felt her jaw tighten as each memory resurfaced, layering frustration over years of forced compliance. She had paid for repairs they caused, for furniture they broke, for bills they ignored, and for silence she never wanted. Every dollar she spent was repackaged into a narrative where she was generous only because she was single and had the time. They never saw her sacrifices because they never looked, never asked, never believed she had limits of her own. The Lakehouse was supposed to be her escape, a place untouched by their chaos and unburdened by obligation. But the spare key had turned it into another space they consumed, another part of her life they claimed without consent. Now the memory of handing over that key felt like a betrayal she committed against herself. A mistake she was finally ready to correct, with a clarity sharpened by years of swallowing her needs. The past had taken enough from her, and she refused to let it shape the summer they thought they owned. For the first time, she let the anger settle not as fire but as resolve, cool and precise. They had written the rules for years, but now she was rewriting the entire script. The car rumbled down the Vermont road, packed with suitcases and loud laughter that Rebecca didn't hear. Inside her apartment in Boston, she opened the camera feed and saw the porch, empty and waiting. The locks had been changed overnight. The codes she installed blinked silently, invisible barriers to a house they no longer controlled. Her phone buzzed once, twice, then a flurry of calls she ignored, letting the ringtone fade into white noise. The tires crunching gravel were the only sound her family would hear that day. They stopped at the front gate, Claire reaching for the handle, expecting it to yield. It didn't. Confusion crossed faces, then frustration, then disbelief. No key worked. No code worked. The house was still theirs in memory, but not in reality. Rebecca leaned back, hands folded over her coffee, eyes glued to the screen. She watched them circle the porch, trying doors, windows, anything that could grant access. Her mother's voice rose, tense and pleading, demanding explanations that would never come. Rebecca didn't answer. She didn't even breathe audibly. Her calm became a wall, separating her world from the chaos below. They banged, they shouted, they gestured, but the house remained still, silent, resolutely hers. The air smelled of pine and wet grass outside, untouched by the storm of entitlement at the gate. Claire stomped her foot, glaring at the door like force could bend reality. Her father called her phone again, voice shaky, full of anger wrapped in desperation. Rebecca watched the call without picking up, letting it ring and ring, untethered. They assumed access was a right, a birthright even. Rebecca knew it had never been. Every failed attempt made her pulse steady, each moment a meditation in self-possession. Her family paced, whispered, and argued, realizing slowly that they had been strangers to her authority all along. The Lakehouse had always been hers in law and in deed, but never fully in spirit until now. The realization hit them in waves, small at first, then undeniable. They could not force the locks. They could not bypass the cameras. They could not rewrite the years of boundaries she had been too polite to enforce. Her phone lit up with texts, each more frantic, more insistent than the last. Rebecca scrolled past them, seeing the names, the faces, the demands that no longer applied. Their summer plans dissolved in the cold reality of rejection. They whispered to each other, the words sharp, carrying blame and confusion in equal measure. Rebecca smiled faintly, a thin curve of vindication she barely acknowledged. The sun climbed higher, glinting on the porch railing, indifferent to their frustration. She thought of the spare key, the countless times she had handed control away, and felt the weight lift. For the first time, the house obeyed her, not them. The front gate remained locked. The camera feed showed them retreating slightly, still angry, still denied, still powerless. Rebecca sipped her coffee, letting the quiet swell inside her, savoring the moment she had imagined for years. She didn't gloat. She didn't celebrate loudly. She simply allowed herself to exist in a space that belonged to her entirely. And as the morning stretched into afternoon, one truth settled. They were outside. She was inside. And for the first time, no one could take that away. Rebecca sat at her desk and opened her phone, the list of contacts long and familiar. One by one, she blocked them, a deliberate click for each name, each number, each thread of obligation. Her mother disappeared first, followed by her father, Claire, and the extended cousins who always assumed she would provide. The notifications vanished, leaving only silence where chaos had lived for decades. She felt no guilt, no hesitation. Only a sharp, clean relief that spread through her chest, like sunlight through fog. Next came the financial accounts, the automatic transfers, the recurring payments she had made without pause. She canceled every line of credit she had kept active for family emergencies that never truly ended. The car payments for Claire, the monthly support for her parents, the quarterly aid for her uncle gone. Each deletion felt like reclaiming a piece of herself she had long surrendered. Years of quiet sacrifice dissolved into digital nothingness with one steady hand. Her bank confirmed the changes, and Rebecca exhaled as if finally releasing a held breath she didn't know she carried. Her phone buzzed, a desperate attempt at connection she ignored, letting the silence stretch comfortably around her. Her family tried texting, calling, leaving voicemails filled with confusion and accusations. Rebecca didn't answer. She didn't feel the panic she once would have. She felt the clarity of a boundary, finally drawn and enforced. The locks, the blocks, the financial cutoffs were all pieces of a fortress she built piece by piece. They had assumed access, always, in every way imaginable. Rebecca corrected that assumption with precise, unshakable authority. She reviewed her work, each task sharper, more focused, energized by freedom instead of drained by obligation. The house, now empty of uninvited footsteps, seemed to hum with her presence, loyal and protective. Her phone remained quiet except for the occasional notification from friends, not family, who respected her space. She felt the weight of old debts lift from her shoulders, heavy for years, now gone in minutes. Every dollar once funneled to appease demands became a token of her autonomy instead. Her mind raced with plans and ideas, creativity she had buried under decades of caretaking, now breaking free. She realized she hadn't known she could breathe this fully, move this freely, think this clearly. The house, the accounts, the contacts, all barriers to exploitation removed, left her entirely in control. No one could call her obligations, family duties, anymore. No one could guilt her into surrendering her time, money, or energy. She sipped her coffee again, slower this time, savoring the simple act of uninterrupted thought. Each ping from an unknown number brought only curiosity, not dread. She planned meals, work projects, and evenings at the Lakehouse without consulting anyone else. Her summer, her space, her life belonged solely to her. She imagined the faces of her family, now denied access, their frustration and confusion palpable even through a screen. It was not cruel. It was justice measured in boundaries, not vengeance. She felt the first genuine smile of the season as the sun streamed through her windows. For the first time in years, every decision was hers, every action hers, every moment hers. Rebecca realized she had built more than walls and locks. She had built a life they could not touch, a peace they could not break, a freedom they could never take. And in that quiet, controlled stillness, she knew she would never go back. With her family blocked and finances cut, Rebecca felt a strange lightness in her chest. The tension she carried for years had dissolved into a clarity she hadn't known was possible. She logged into her work account and noticed an email from her boss, short but glowing. Her promotion to lead analyst had been approved weeks ago, but she hadn't allowed herself to celebrate. Now, free from constant distraction and obligation, she could finally breathe into her accomplishments. The projects that once felt overwhelming now seemed thrilling, each problem an opportunity instead of a burden. Her mind worked faster, sharper, more confident than it had in years. Deadlines no longer loomed like threats. They became milestones she could conquer with ease. She realized how much energy her family had quietly siphoned over decades. Every favor, every repayment, every smile forced had drained her creativity and ambition. Now that energy returned in waves, fueling new ideas and bold decisions. She began redesigning the analytics model her team had struggled with for months. Solutions she had ignored before now seemed obvious, elegant, and achievable. Her colleagues noticed the shift immediately, impressed by her focus and confidence. Rebecca smiled quietly, savoring the irony that her liberation had made her more effective at work. Outside, the Lakehouse waited, quiet and untouchable, a reminder of what she had fought to protect. She planned a weekend there alone, imagining the peace of the water and the forest around her. Her phone buzzed with a new notification, not from family, but from Ethan Brooks, a colleague she respected. His message was casual, kind, asking about a recent project, but his tone carried something warmer. He respected boundaries, understood limits, and never demanded more than she could give. Rebecca responded slowly, savoring the ease of conversation without pressure or expectation. It was a relief she hadn't realized she needed until that moment. They met for coffee later that week, and the connection felt natural, mutual, and unhurried. Ethan asked about her Lakehouse, but with curiosity, not entitlement. He listened when she spoke about her summer plans, nodding without judgment or suggestion. Rebecca felt a warmth that had nothing to do with approval and everything to do with respect. She realized she could have relationships built on choice, not obligation. Each laugh, each shared story, reinforced the freedom she had carved for herself. Her home, her career, her boundaries, and now her personal life all aligned in a way she had never experienced. She could pursue passion without guilt, ambition without interference, love without compromise. Rebecca felt stronger, smarter, more alive, more herself than she had in years. Every phone call she ignored from her family, every payment she withheld, every lock she changed had led to this moment. The Lakehouse became a symbol, but so did her autonomy and her ability to choose. The summer stretched ahead, full of possibilities she controlled entirely. For the first time, she was not surviving obligations. She was thriving in freedom. And with Ethan by her side as a steady, respectful presence, she felt she could explore this new life fully. No guilt, No pressure. No old patterns to pull her down. Just clarity, confidence, and the joy of being fully, unapologetically herself. The mediation room smelled faintly of coffee and tension, a sterile battlefield disguised as civility. Rebecca sat at one end of the long table, calm and collected, her hands folded, her phone silent. Across from her, Claire leaned forward, voice sharp, eyes flashing with entitlement and irritation. Their parents sat stiffly, trying to radiate authority, though their faces betrayed confusion and frustration. The mediator cleared his throat, attempting neutrality, but Rebecca already knew the truth of this meeting. It was never about understanding. It was about control. Claire spoke first, her words rehearsed, demanding fair access to the Lakehouse, insisting Rebecca share schedules. Their mother interjected, voice trembling, weaving guilt into every sentence like thread in a trap. Their father echoed support, emphasizing family unity while implying Rebecca's refusal was selfish. Rebecca listened, eyes steady, body calm, heart measured and resolute. She waited until their arguments paused, giving her words maximum weight. She leaned forward slightly, voice even but firm, cutting through the practiced tension. "You don't want unity," she said slowly, each word deliberate, echoing in the quiet room. "You want access." The room shifted slightly, the accusation sinking into their consciousness with uncomfortable clarity. She recounted the years of obligations, loans, gifts, and silent sacrifices they assumed as her duty. Every favor twisted into entitlement, every boundary ignored, every moment of patience exploited. She described the spare key, the financial support, the unasked-for interventions, all used as tools against her autonomy. Her tone never wavered, her eyes never dropped, her voice never rose into anger. It was calm authority, the kind that leaves no room for argument. Claire opened her mouth to interrupt, but Rebecca continued, unyielding, her words precise and unbroken. "Your idea of reconciliation is not apology," she said. "It is a demand for access to my life, my space, my finances." They shifted uneasily, realizing that control they assumed was gone permanently. Rebecca refused to be drawn into debate or negotiation. She did not offer compromise. She did not offer explanation beyond the truth of her experience. Her boundaries were not suggestions. They were laws of her life. "You have never respected me," she said softly but sharply. "Your proposal is not unity. It is intrusion. It is entitlement." The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating, as if her words had cut a path through the air itself. No one tried to counter. For the first time, their usual tactics were powerless. Rebecca stood slowly, her chair scraping quietly against the floor. She picked up her coat, her bag, her sense of self that had been ignored for too long. "I am done," she said, voice steady, not angry, not pleading. Her family watched, stunned, their mouths open, their expectations collapsing quietly before their eyes. She walked to the door with a deliberate pace, each step a declaration of freedom. No one followed. No one called her back. She opened the door, stepped into the sunlight, and closed it behind her. For the first time, she felt the absolute weight of her autonomy, complete and unchallenged. The house, the summer, the life she had built, untouchable. And in that moment, she understood something profoundly simple and powerful. She was free. Completely, irrevocably free. Rebecca stepped out of the mediation room into the sunlight, breathing deeply for the first time in years. The weight of obligation, guilt, and expectation lifted with each step she took away from them. Her Lakehouse, her life, her choices, untouchable and fully hers, welcomed her like an old friend. She felt the clarity of freedom in her chest, steady and unshakable, a calm she had long denied herself. The phone stayed silent. No calls. No messages. No demands. Just quiet. She smiled, small and unguarded, savoring the absence of interference. For years, she had bent, given, and compromised to maintain peace that never existed. Now the peace was real because it was earned, not granted. Rebecca walked toward her car, sunlight warming her face, wind tangling her hair, each step deliberate. She imagined weekends at the Lakehouse, work thriving, evenings with Ethan, life flowing on her terms. No one could dictate her time, her energy, or her choices anymore. Every lock, every block, every boundary she set was a declaration. She belonged only to herself. And in that quiet, sunlit moment, she understood it fully. She was independent. She was powerful. She was free. And nothing in the world could take that away.